Hello, IB Physics. Let's go ahead and get started using Vernier video analysis. So you already should have downloaded the video that you plan on using, whether it's the high ramp, medium ramp, or low ramp. And when you open Vernier video analysis in Chrome, I think it also will work in Safari, but I think Chrome works best. You're going to want to click the Open Saved File option. So you should have that video saved to your photos on your iPad. I am going to click the medium ramp just for funs. And so what will happen is that Vernier video analysis here will import that video here in the video pane of this little web-based app. You notice there's some other things on it. So we've got something, the graph, we've got data set. And to make our lives as easy as possible to start off with, I'm going to go up here to the little box with boxes and actually select just the video. I only want to see the video right now. And I'm just doing that to make my life a little bit easier so that I can see the video as clearly as possible. So I'm going to make that go away. And so here we have the video. You can click play and watch the video. You notice I have actually trimmed this video for you already. So the very beginning is right when I let go of the ramp. I'm sorry, of the cart. If I hadn't trimmed it for you, and I think that's true. Maybe that's not true. Oh. Well, if I didn't trim it for you perfectly, you might want to find the spot where I do actually let go of it and drag this little triangle down here to that frame. So if you were doing this for a longer video, this triangle would be especially helpful. Another thing that if you were doing for a longer video is that you can set up the frame rate to be, the advanced frames to be, instead of one frame, which is what we're going to do, some larger number of frames. But I will tell you that our video is very short, as you can see. Very, very short. So it doesn't actually have that many frames. So notice that now that I've set this triangle here, that's where it's starting the video. And so I can say, okay, well, is that right when yeah, you can see how I'm letting go of it. Great, okay. So what we're going to try to do with this app is track the motion of the cart as it moves down the ramp. Notice that I have on the ramp a meter stick, helpfully. I put some blue tape at the start and end of the meter stick to try to make it a little bit easier for you to use. And I also have a little piece of blue tape here on the cart, again, to make this a little bit easier to do. So the first step we're going to do before we start doing some video analysis is we're actually going to go to the Systems tab, because for the app to know things and be able to analyze this video, we actually have to tell it some things about our system. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to scale what 1 meter is. And so I'm going to put the little cursors onto the ends of the meter stick. You want to do this as carefully as you can. One thing to notice is you can zoom in, so you can make it even more precise. Supposedly I can scroll while having it zoom. So you might be able to scroll with 2 fingers. If you hold down Shift while clicking and dragging, you can scroll across the video. I haven't tried this before, so I feel very cool now. So again, oh look, I already had it lined up really well. You can see that blue edge, that's the very edge of the meter stick. And so now we have 1 meter here on our video, and I'm going to zoom back out. So that's 1 meter. It's not perfectly parallel, the meter stick. That's fine. And then the other thing that we want to set up is something, the origin. And so what you're doing here is notice that we have these little X, Y frames. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide where on the cart am I going to click, am I going to say is like the part that I'm tracking. And what I would really recommend is doing the blue tape front edge or back edge. You get to decide. So I'm gonna say the front edge of the blue tape. That's where I'm tracking, and so I'm trying to have my coordinate be right there, front edge of the blue tape, and I'm doing the bottom front edge. And then The other thing, and this is key, are you with me? This is key, is that you're going to take the X and actually drag it so that it's parallel with the ramp. So parallel with the ramp. It looks pretty good. One way you can double check this is sort of zooming in to look at the cart itself. The bottom of the cart is parallel with the ramp, so this should glide right along the bottom of the cart, and I think that is pretty good. So the reason that we're doing this is that this way, the X direction will be following the cart's motion the whole time. And so we're actually going to only pay attention to what's happening in the X direction. The Y direction, nothing will be happening because the cart's not going to jump off the ramp. The cart's not going to sink into the ramp. It's just going to go along the ramp. So the Y direction will be ideally very boring. So I've got my setup. My system is all set. I have a scale. I have an origin. And now what we're going to do is go to add. So here's where the really cool thing comes in. I am going to put a little dot where the cart is. And so I'm actually going to zoom in. Again, you're using your two fingers to pinch and zoom. And I'm going to put a dot right where the start of the car is. So I'm putting it at the front lower corner of the blue tape. And I'm going to go ahead and click. And you might have noticed that the frame has changed, so I've let go of my hand. So again, where's the start of the blue tape? Still like kind of the same spot. Oh, it's definitely moved now. There. And so you're going to go along and click where the front of the blue tape is. And so let's say, oh no, I accidentally clicked right there. That's definitely not where the cart is. This is not good. The cart is actually here. We have this wonky point over here. So I've got a few points here, including this wonky point over here. What you're going to want to do is actually do this all the way to the end of the video, which will be, well, let's see, about probably 20 frames, 20 points. This is more points than you really need to have, so we could advance the frame rate, but I think we'll stick with it as it is, just so that we can get a really high resolution on what's happening here in this cart going down the ramp. But let's say you made a little error like I did. Oh, I have this point here. It clearly doesn't belong right there. What you can do is go back to edit, go from add to edit, and I'm going to zoom back. Beep, 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 beep. And so notice that as I'm zooming backwards, it's actually taking away the points. And you might say, oh great, the points are gone. They're not. As you go forwards, oh, our mistake point comes back. So what I'm going to do, now that I'm in the edit mode, I'm going to zoom back in, and I'm going to click on this point. Come here, point. That's not working very well, is it? In edit. Oh, it's because it's still zooming. Okay, so I've clicked on this point, maybe. And you notice that the point has become sort of white in the middle. So now I could drag it over to the trash and get rid of it. Or, oh, I did that. Okay. So I dragged it over to the trash and got rid of it. So I can actually go back to add and go back to adding in my points. And so I can say, okay, let's go back a point, forward, frame. Yeah, okay, that looks like it's in the right place. Forward another frame, that looks like it's in the right place. And so you can go ahead and continue adding in your points. Again, using this edit to change it. I'm noticing that this is running a little bit slowly for me, which it hasn't ever done before. So I think that might be my computer's fault. maybe the fact that I'm recording this is causing some issues. Anyway, so you'll get all of these clicky points in all the way down the ramp. And then what you're going to be able to do is actually go back to our pane here and turn on the graph. You can turn on the data table as well just to see what that looks like. So in the data table, we have our times, we have the X position, we have the Y position, we have the X velocity. And one thing that I do want you to take a moment and double check is check out the X position and see if that makes sense for what we set up as our system. Our X position here says negative 0.2. So that'd be negative 20 centimeters. And I just find that puzzling. So I'm going to do a little, there we go. I think it gets a little bit confused. So double check that your system is starting right at the top, right where your first clicky point is. And you should have some pretty small values in your X position column. The Y position column actually should probably stay mostly the same the whole time. It should be about 0 the whole time. So double check that those are the case. And then the magic of this is that we're going to just not worry too much about our data in the data set. We're actually going to look at the graphs, which are really, really great. So I'm going to scoop my data set down. I'm going to make my graphs the focus. And I'm going to actually first change to just X. So when you do this, you'll probably get quite a few data points, which is really very powerful. So you'll want to click the little zoom in button. That means it's going to zoom to all data so that you can see what is happening. And what I'm going to have you do is go ahead and make there be 2 graphs. And now that I've done my quick investigation of the data table to make sure that my origin is in the right place, I'm actually going to say, go away data table, I don't need you. So I have this data here, and I want my position versus time graph to be the top graph, and notice that I'm using the X position. Then my bottom graph, I would actually like to be just the X velocity. I don't care about the Y velocity because again, that's going up and down relative to the ramp, and our cart isn't going to fly off the ramp. So I just want to look at the X velocity. And you might be wondering, how does the computer come up with the X velocity? So what it's actually doing is finding the slope between 2 points as it goes along, as the dots go along. So it finds the slope from this point to this point, then it finds the slope from this point to this point. And it does a working average of these to give us our velocities here, which is pretty darn cool. And so technically what it's doing is it's taking the derivative, if you're in calculus, technically. So I have here really lovely data. And so I'd like you to go ahead and take a moment to sketch this in your lab notebook. Make sure to include your axes labels, that's X units meters, T in units seconds, and include the values that are on your axes. So you don't have to write every value down. In fact, don't. That's doing the most. You want to write your values going from 0 to whatever the top value is, and 0 to whatever the maximum time is. It'll be like 1 second, probably less than 1 second actually. Same thing with our velocity time graph. And then go ahead and get a screenshot of this. And actually, let's go ahead and make the video itself. Ooh, I would say make the video itself go away, but you know what? If we make the video go away, we'll have a hard time telling what your controller is. So just make the video small. And then go ahead and grab a screenshot of this. You want to grab the whole thing so you have your 2 graphs, X versus T, X velocity versus T. Screenshot that and go ahead and post that to Schoology. Awesome. And if you can leave this tab open, you'll be a lot happier a little bit later on. Because we can do a couple of cool things with making a line fit, which is pretty awesome.